There are some things a man never forgets. Not the day his wife dies, not the silence that follows it, and definitely not the moment he realizes his own son is being reduced to nothing right in front of him. I am 71 years old. I've buried the only woman I ever loved, built 2 businesses from the ground up, and raised my son alone from the age of 9. His name is Adrian. He wasn't loud, wasn't reckless. He was careful, thoughtful, the kind of boy who grew into a man without ever making you worry. And maybe that was the problem, because the world doesn't reward quiet strength. It tests it. When Adrian married Liana, I told myself he had found happiness. She was everything people admire: educated, confident, elegant. Her father, Victor Hale, was the kind of man who didn't ask for respect. He expected it. The first time I met him, he didn't shake my hand, he inspected it. Like I was a deal he wasn't sure about. I noticed, but I said nothing, because men like me don't react immediately. We observe, we wait. 3 months after the wedding, Adrian left his job. 6 years of experience, promotions, stability, gone. Victor offered him a position in his company. Family business, he said, better future. Adrian asked me what I thought. I could have stopped him, but I didn't. Because a father's job isn't to control his son's path, it's to see if he can walk it on his own. Just keep your eyes open, I told him. He smiled and said, I will. At first, everything looked fine. Then something changed. He stopped talking about work, stopped laughing at dinner, started staring at nothing, like his mind was somewhere else. I asked him once, quietly, everything okay? He said the same thing most men say when they're not okay. Yeah, just work stuff. That was the moment I knew. Something was wrong. So one morning, I went to see him. I didn't call, didn't warn anyone. I just drove. Because sometimes, truth doesn't wait for permission. The building was larger than I expected. Clean, cold, efficient. But something about it felt wrong. I asked the front desk where I could find my son. The woman hesitated, just for a second. Then she said, East Corridor, maintenance, maintenance. The word didn't make sense, not for Adrian. I walked down that hallway slowly, and then I heard it. A sound I will never forget, a mop bucket dragging across concrete. I turned the corner and saw my son. Gray uniform. Sleeves rolled up, head down, cleaning a floor that should have never been his responsibility. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Because no matter how old you are, nothing prepares you to see your child like that. He looked up, our eyes met, and I saw it. Not anger, not frustration, shame. The kind he didn't deserve. Dad, what are you doing here? I wanted to say something. Anything. But before I could, I heard footsteps behind me. Slow, confident, deliberate. Victor Hale. He smiled. Like everything was under control. Cross-training, he said casually. Then he leaned slightly toward the man beside him and said something just loud enough for me to hear. Honestly, this is probably where he belongs. The man laughed. And in that moment, something inside me didn't break. It went quiet. I looked at my son, then at Victor, and for the first time, I decided something. This wouldn't end here. Adrian, I said calmly, I'll see you this weekend. And I walked away. I didn't argue, didn't shout, didn't react. Because men like Victor don't learn from noise. They learn from consequences. And as I sat in my car, watching the clock tick, I made a decision that would change everything. I picked up my phone, dialed a number I hadn't used in years. When he answered, I said only 4 words, I need your help. And that was the beginning. I didn't tell Adrian what I was doing, not because I didn't trust him, but because hope without certainty is a dangerous thing, and I wasn't going to give him hope until I could guarantee the outcome. The man I called was Marcus Reed. 62 years old, sharp mind, no wasted words. He had helped me build my second company, and more importantly, he knew how to see what others tried to hide. He arrived 3 days later. We didn't meet in an office. We met in a quiet diner outside the city. Because real conversations don't happen in places where people listen. I told him everything. He didn't interrupt, didn't react, just listened. Then he asked one question. What do you want to know? Everything, I said. For the next 3 weeks, Marcus disappeared into numbers, records, connections, and when he came back, he didn't look surprised. Victor Hale's company was collapsing, slowly, quietly, but inevitably. Lost contracts, mounting debt, desperate decisions hidden behind confidence. Victor wasn't powerful, he was drowning, and drowning men push others under to stay afloat. Suddenly everything made sense. Why Adrian was pushed into low-level work, why he was being humiliated, why Victor smiled so easily. Because to him, my son wasn't family, he was leverage. That's when I made my move. I didn't confront him, didn't warn him, didn't threaten him. I invested quietly, through people he didn't know, through channels he didn't control. Debt first, then equity, then influence, step by step, piece by piece. I took control of the one thing he valued most, his company. Weeks passed. Adrian kept struggling, kept staying silent, and I kept building something behind the scenes he couldn't even imagine. Patience isn't waiting, it's preparation. And I was almost ready. The final call came on a Thursday afternoon. It's done, Marcus said. I now owned enough to decide what happened next. Victor Hale just didn't know it yet. I sat in silence for a long moment, not smiling, not celebrating, because this was never about revenge. It was about balance. And the next step was going to change all of it. Victor Hale found out on a Monday morning, not from a call, not from a meeting, but from a letter. Formal, precise, unavoidable. By the time he finished reading it, everything had already changed. We met 3 days later. Same building, different reality. He looked tired, not weak, but no longer in control. I walked into that room calmly, took my seat, and began speaking. No anger, no emotion, just facts, plans, decisions. I explained how the company would be stabilized, what would change, who would lead. Then I paused, looked directly at him, and said, Adrian will be stepping into operations director. Silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Final. For one reason I continued. Because he was never the problem, Victor didn't argue, didn't fight. Because men like him understand one thing very clearly. When they've already lost, I stood up, collected my papers. And before leaving, I said one last thing. I didn't do this to destroy you. I did this to correct you. Then I walked out. That same evening, I called my son. We met at a quiet place. He looked confused, tired, still carrying something he shouldn't have. I told him everything, every step, every decision. He sat there, silent, processing it. Then he asked softly, Why would you do all that for me? I looked at him and said the only thing that mattered, because I'm your father. Then I told him something harder. Now you need to decide something, not about the company, about your wife, because the truth is, silence is also a choice. Weeks later, he made his decision, and slowly I watched my son come back to life, not as a victim, not as a man who endured, but as a man who understood his worth. And me, I remained the same, quiet, patient, observing, because after 71 years, I've learned something simple. The most dangerous man in the room isn't the loud one, it's the one who waits until it's time to act.